it's going to be very, very close between the two marks, I think. Will the Yamahas get in there? There's a question. Remember, Reimer's on the front row of the grid. Fogarty is 4. Reimer is 32. Those are the two British guys that you've got to watch. Aaron Slight on the left of your picture is 6. Is the fastest man. They put it into gear. There's a green flag at the back of the course. Who's going to make the whole shot? Watch for the green lights, and they're away. Oh, and a very quick getaway from Bontempi. Flyer from Bontempi. But it looks to me like, yes, it's Fogarty. Fogarty is right on the inside. Is he going to do an outbreaking job into the first turn? No, he's in second place. Bontempi leads, Angel.
Well, the young man from Trieste leads. Now, ladies, this is a brunette version of Fred Merkel out the front. And he's a bit of a desperate character at times with Pier Giorgio. And he is not used to leading. And he's got a couple of lengths over Foggy. Behind him, number 7, Stefan Mertens is in 3rd before the Kawasaki's come into sight.
Well, certainly Bontempi got that thing right off the line very quickly, did he? It wasn't a jump start. But 28 laps to go, and there's a bit of warming up to do here. Mertens looking at the inside line on Fogarty there. Mertens is 7, Fogarty is 4, 6 is Aaron Slight, pole sitter. 5 is your man Perovino. Well, he didn't quite get the start we expected of him. No, he obviously was caught napping.
Well, it's not bad from the 3rd row, though, is it? Let's face it. Where's Garriga? There he is, just going through picture. So he's not exactly showing strongly at the moment. Keith, this is a tight, twisty track. Difficult to overtake on, or do you just run up the inside and shove them out the way?
A long way to go, I think. Anywhere where it's tight and twisty. Your theory is that long, fast tracks tend to make the racing much closer. On tight, twisty tracks, it spreads out. I think in World Superbike, that usually defies those rules, doesn't it?
It does. Well, certainly here last year, it was a couple of freight trains. Here's a bit of a fight. Looks like Terry Ryan was in the middle of that triumvirate with Danny Amatrian on the Marlborough Duke. But back at the leader, Bontempi leads from Mertens, from Foggy, from Slight, and then from Perovino by the look of it.
Yeah, Falapa was in there as well. Number 9 was Falapa. 10, this man leading your race is beyond Pier Giorgio Bontempi. Well, it's only lap 1 after all. I'll get round to his name a bit better as we go on. But Mertens now in second place, bike 7. 4 in 3rd place is Fogarty, coming under pressure from Slight. Slight slides up the inside. No, he doesn't. Well, he has got to make a very decisive move on Fogarty if he's going to get by, because Carl is tough.
But that young New Zealander, Aaron Slight, on number 6, the Kawasaki rider, he won the first race here last year, which was the opening round of the championship. That's his only victory so far in World Superbike. And Aaron has impressed so far, Keith. He's finished in the top 6 in all 4 races we've seen so far. Don't discount it, but this young man, Pier Giorgio Bontempi, from Trieste in Italy, just 24 years of age. One of the young lions who, when he arrived in Superbike racing, when 1989 on the Rumi team with Fred Merkel, he was a real wild character. He has calmed down a little bit. He was 2nd in the European Superbike Championship last year, 10th in the World Superbike Championship. A star of the future.
Well, he doesn't want to calm down too much, because after this top 6 that we're looking at here with Bontempi leading it is a real battle with Scott Russell and co behind them. I mean, I think we haven't got 2 cameras with one in set here for the 2 battles that are going on, because the one at the front is quite enthralling with Bontempi leading by 10 from 7 Mertens, but the battle at the back with Falapa and Scott Russell and co at the minute is scary.
Yes, it is. You just saw Scott Russell flashing through the picture there. There's Perovino number 5. There's 9 Falapa. Then they gap to Amatrian, Russell, Garriga, Reimer and Lucchiari. And that is, good dear me, there's some muscle in there, isn't there? And Foggy's looking for second place. Foggy, Keith, can he draft it?
On to lap 3, not a lot of drafting going on here. And he's only outside of him. Well, I'll take that back. I wouldn't think that was drafting. I think he just squirted it onto the straight that much quicker. Not a very fast straight here to get into any kind of slipstreaming manoeuvre. Look at Fogarty. Front wheel popping in the air there, squirting the power on. Well, Fogarty, well, he has looked good to me. I think the man, at only 26, it's difficult to actually think of Carl Fogarty as just 26 years of age. From Blackburn in Lancashire, he has improved so much over the last 3 or 4 years. It seems as if he's been around for a lot longer than he actually has. And I've got to say, the way he is maturing on track and off of it is really outstanding, and he really is going to be a man of the future.
I'd narrow that down to even the last 2 years, 18 months, Keith, when there seems to have been some sort of change in Carl Fogarty, whether it's the fact he was able to take advice for the first time in his career, rather than just having attitude, give me the bike, I can ride it, which he certainly was like early in his career.
Well, there is always a time in your career where sheer youth enthusiasm, and over-enthusiasm in some cases, is overtaken or blended in with experience and skill. And when you get to that point, you can walk on water. Look at how Fogarty's getting out the turns. Unbelievable. Absolutely squirted the power out. That's what he did onto the start and finish straight. He's obviously got an absolute perfect suspension and tyre setup, because he had so much confidence there. He nailed the Ducati to the floor, and really, even the power of the Kawasaki looked like it was slow.
Amazing stuff from Foggy. And now Pier Giorgio Bontempi, number 10, goes back to second place, and he will be coming under pressure from number 7, the Ducati of Stefan Mertens, and also number 6, the Kawasaki of Aaron Slight. Pirovano, number 5, in 4th place. Looks like Falapa has him in his sights. No, Falapa follows through. And dear me, Bontempi is getting the treatment now from the leaders.
Yeah, and just look at the radical style of car where he moves his body over, leaves the bike on the side in the S's and jumps over the other side ready to heave it across, and he looks so aggressive. Well, Mertens is a bit of a worry, because Mertens has been known to... Mertens is bike 7 in second place now behind Fogarty bike 4, and really... I would worry about having Mertens up the inside of me at any time on a racetrack. Just lately, he really does seem to be... I mean, one of the manoeuvres he did at Brands Hatch earlier on in the year had me on the ceiling of the commentary box.
Oh, he's an aggressive character as we check the top 4. Cole Fogarty, Stefan Mertens, Pier Giorgio Bontempi and Aaron Slight. Although those two Kawasaki's have swapped places. Number 6, Slight, is in 6th place. And the next man along, after our early leader Bontempi, looks like Falapa in front of Pirovano, Keith. So the big boys are edging up to the front.
Long way to go yet, 24 odd laps now left, and it already seems to be wearing out as far as I'm concerned here, but Fogarty is certainly stamping some kind of, well, I won't say domination because it's a little bit early for that yet, but certainly seems to have strung 2 or 3 good laps together and has eased away and has increased the pressure on these guys behind him, because they're all stringing out now. They can't actually keep up with the pace of Fogarty and his Duke, so really good tactics from Fogarty.
Slight is edging up to Mertens, though. Falapa is coming up as well. You can see the number 6 Kawasaki Keith closer to Mertens than he has been for a while. Next along number 9, the championship leader, Falapa. And where's Bontempi? He's behind Falapa. Pirovano goes up the inside. Fabrizio.
Pirovano had the rear wheel 2 feet off the ground on the brakes then. Well, of course, he only weighs about 2 stones, so he's got nothing to hold it down. But unbelievably, Pirovano had the thing airborne. It was a stoppie. Sounded like a stoppie into the first turn, but back there it is. Scott Russell, bike number 11, down in 7th place. Now, Scott Russell, I would have expected him to have been a bit closer to the front than this, but of course, he doesn't get flapped about it, does he? He works his way up. He's real cool character. He'll be working away where he is at the minute, and he's not a long way off, as you can see there. The
worry is he's bringing Garriga with him, which is, again, you expect that from Garriga, wouldn't you, Keith? He's not getting flustered. He knows if he can stick with Scott Russell, he won't go far wrong.
Flustered was a word I was looking for earlier on, Julian. I must write it down. Fogarty then, back under pressure from Mertens. Mertens, a little inconsistent in putting his laps together, and certainly he's going back between Fogarty and third place man. Backwards and forwards a bit like it. Look at the way Fogarty gets out the turns, though. He really has got a good combination there. Not feared of his tyres at all, is he?
I'm wondering if he's using the variable geometry inlet tracks his teammate Falapa was using to get out the corners quicker. Certainly, Keith, we were talking about the differences between the Ducatis and the Japanese bikes. The twin-cylinder Ducatis are allowed to be up to 1000cc. The Japanese 4 is only 750cc. But crucially, these things, the big red Ducatis, can be 25 kilograms lighter. And, of course, the works bikes do have that advantage. Now, that must be a real bonus for a ride around a hard work track like this.
Yeah, I'd have said so, but although the steering geometry and the like on the latest Fords, the Kawasaki's and the Yamahas is nowhere near at the disadvantage it was before. I mean, last year the Ducatis, you didn't see which way they went, but really, I don't know, the Kawasaki's are on a par now with the Dukes. Look at this, Fogarty and Mertens absolutely fine. Well, Mertens is all right when he's on the outside of somebody, because if anything happens, it'll only be him that it happens to. If he's on the inside, well, press the worry button.
Yeah, well, Stefan has a history of throwing things into the scenery. That 250 Scirocco he rode in Grand Prix was a bit of a woofer of a motorcycle, and Stefan said he did sling it around a lot. But he's joined Superbike in '88 when the championship started. 4th, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 7th his positions in the World Superbike Championship over the years. In fact, he only lost the '89 title due to a brake disc exploding in New Zealand in the last race of the year and sending him into the trees. He's not been the luckiest rider in the world.
And I think Superbike is a long series with 28 races out of 14 rounds, and really a little bit of luck. You need to string it together, you need to be there all the time. That's what I think I'm so impressed about Scott Russell.
Yes.
He didn't blow his mind at Brands Hatch when he was getting blitzed in the rain. He just grabbed those points, and that is what it's about over a long series. There's no injury, and keep getting points, keep scoring points as hard as you can. Of course, Fogarty really, in my view, was a series as Aaron sits up, makes me sit up as well. Fogarty was my series favourite at the beginning of this year, and the first couple of rounds really have not been his favourites. I mean, Hockenheim, he managed to get a third out of that. He's looking really, really good though at the moment. And Scott Russell, who we've repeatedly said is probably the favourite for the series, finds himself under big trouble here, notably like he did at Hockenheim. Remember, the first leg at Hockenheim wasn't happy with the way the bike was set up for the first race, so they changed it all between the races, and all of a sudden Scott Russell went from not an also-ran, but certainly one that was struggling down in places in the first race, to winning the second race by such a convincing margin. We wondered what he was on.
Well, he put the qualifying motor back in the bike for the second race, allegedly, Your Honour, and he was so wound up, he just went off. There's the gaps, 2.7 seconds between first and fourth. Fogarty and Falapa, the teammates in the Raymond Roche Ducati team. We see Garriga on the end of the group that goes through. But certainly when Scott Russell went out in that second race at Hockenheim, Keith, he did not care. He shot his tyres to pieces early in the race and then hung on on a set of Dunlops that were completely scrapped by 2/3 of the way through the race. But as we said at the time, even if Garriga and Falapa could have got near him, would they have got past him? I doubt it. Scott Russell wanted, it's what Eric Richards was saying in the studio earlier about Foggy in Ulster last weekend. Russell wanted that win so much in Hockenheim, and he took it. And I wonder what he'll do for the second race here, because if this keeps up, we can just see him coming through in the back of the picture in about 7th place. He ain't going to get on the rostrum this time round. As we look at the leader, Carl Fogarty of Blackburn, Lancashire.
So then, another lap completed. Fogarty now, I will say, is dominating this race. He's controlling it at the front. Of course, the guys behind him have somewhat of an easier task because they've got someone to aim at. Aaron Slight in picture, bike 6 there on the Muzzy Kawasaki. His teammate, well, Scott Russell, that we keep going on about, is down in something like 7th. These three now have managed to break away at the front of this superbike field, something that's obviously proving your theory about tight tracks and a bit of a spread-out race. I hate it when you're right.
This is the best we've seen from Aaron Slight, Keith, really. He's been in the fight in the first two rounds, but never up there. He hasn't been on the rostrum yet. 5th place, 6th place, 6th place, 4th place. His results, Foggy gets a bit of a twitch on. He's getting the power down so early, isn't he?
He's getting the power down now. That's the first time we've seen that bike really squirm from putting the power down quite hard. So it'll be interesting to see if his tyre is holding up after giving it so much jip early on in this race. I mean, there could be method in everybody else's madness. I think these three runners, all the front three, are on the same sets of tyres on Michelin. So we wait to see quite whose is burnt out first.
Aaron Slight's on Dunlop.
Oh, is he? Well, I knew you'd correct me if I was wrong there. So Slightly and Russell are on Dunlops. Well, maybe then that could be very interesting indeed, because Dunlops actually have been running very, very well this year, and it will be interesting to see if in this heat they perform completely different to the Michelin. We'll wait and see how Fogarty's bike squirms about out of these tight turns.
That's something to throw in the mix for later in the race, Keith, and it is decently warm here. This is a new track, quite an abrasive surface, lots of corners. As we look at the championship leader, Giancarlo Falapa, running a slightly lonely... Where is he? 1, 2, 3... There's the top three men. Who's next along? Russell or Falapa?
I think Falapa is still in 4th place. I think Russell's behind him. But these three at the front, carbon disc. I mean, we've got a good shot then of the carbon disc. Of course, that's something that Superbike have taken away from the old Grand Prix side of things nowadays. And these bikes work so well on a track. You really do need something a little bit more unconventional than standard steel discs.
Yes, carbon fibre discs and disc pads work better, generate more friction the hotter they get, and when they get up to the top of their working range, it's like switching a brick wall on in front of you, isn't it? These bellowing Ducatis stop so quickly, turn into a corner so quickly. They definitely have an advantage going into corners up against the Japanese bikes. That's what we've been led to believe from the first two races anyway, Keith.
So then, Carl Fogarty leads his way around Albacete, and Julian, a profile on Carl Fogarty. Let's have a look at his career details so far.
Well, just the one win, which of course was that splendid privateer win at Donington in the second race last year. He fell off while leading the first one. He is the reigning World Endurance Champion, along with Terry Reimer. 3 times the World Formula 1 Champion. Well, that's 2 world titles and 1 FIM Cup, but who's quibbling about little details like that? He was the World F1 Champion 3 times, absolute lap record holder in the Isle of Man, and also now, Keith, absolute lap record holder in the Northwest 200, so he's master of the road circuits without doubt.
And he ain't going too bad on these kind of circuits either, is he really?
Not so you've noticed.
Fogarty, a good all-rounder. Now look at this. Is this a challenge from Aaron Slight? Well, it looked like a bit of a half-hearted one to me, to be honest. It didn't look like he'd made his mind up about that. So Aaron Slight, while he rechecks his route, Fogarty then gets a chance to get away. Now again, I think it's more than likely Mertens is Mertens is going backwards and forwards like a yo-yo. 1 minute he's on the tail of Carl Fogarty, then he's right in the front of Aaron Slight. Now that'll be great for Fogarty, because if Mertens is inconsistent, it'll mess Aaron Slight up. Something terrible, which of course I wouldn't want to happen to him.
Lap 10 of the 28. This man, Carl Fogarty, leads from number 7, Stefan Mertens, the Belgian, and number 6, Aaron Slight, the New Zealander. 2 Ducatis, leader Kawasaki. And these 3 now, Keith, have disappeared. They have definitely toddled off from the rest of the field, who's led by Falapa. Now, Stefan Mertens in second place, the Belgian, a very interesting character.
So then, Fogarty leads, Stefan Mertens in second place, and here is his career details, Jules.
Yeah, he's only 33, but again, he's one of those riders who you think's been around forever. From an affluent family, his dad runs the Total Petrol Company, the Belgian branch. He's raced in 250 Grand Prix with not a lot of luck. He raced a couple of 500s and looked good on the old Honda triples, it has to be said. He's raced the World Endurance. The Grattini Ducati is the second works team, really. The first A-line works team is the Raymond Roche team of Falapa and Foggy, and the Grattini Ducati team, managed by your old chum David Tardozzi, is equal machinery, if you like, and it's Stefan Mertens and 1 Garriga. And look at that, 11 career wins in World Superbike, 3rd in the all-time list. A serious competitor, Stefan.
I would say a serious competitor, a very, very nice man indeed, but just a tendency perhaps to jump off the thing a bit too often. Oh, I say it! Well, this is a live programme, and I promise you I didn't know that was going to happen. Well, the kiss of death, Ewan's kiss of death. I did say that he did have a tendency to get off of it, and on cue, well, my earphones are ringing.
Dear me, Keith Ewan has the power of sight.
And let's have a take another look at that. I think the front just tucked straight under him there. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, look at that, as gentle as they ever go. Well, just lost traction at the front now. Aaron Slight, very difficult when you're that close not to follow the habit of the guy in front of you. The times I've been involved in that situation where, you know, you fall down in sympathy almost when you're that close.
I've got pictures of you doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Aaron Slight did very well then, held on to it, but now then, the big question is, Fogarty has a lead, he'll know he has a lead, while Mertens is... Well, I mean, I feel so sorry for Stefan Mertens, because he doesn't deserve that. He didn't do anything dramatically wrong at all there. He just tipped it in the corner, and he'd done for the last God knows how many laps, and the front just let go on him. The pace was hot, mitigating circumstances, and really a great shame, and the penalty didn't fit the crime as far as I'm concerned there, even though I accept what I said about Stefan Mertens. But getting back to this, Fogarty leads. Now we have a chance to see whether Aaron Slight can make up this gap and show us whether the pole time that he set was a fluke or not. Well,
it was, as you said, Keith, he was given a lead of a second over Scott Russell on the early times, which must have been a stopwatch telling porky pies somewhere along the line, mustn't it? Later revised down to about a half a second lead, which when you see that the gap between Scott Russell and Carl Fogarty was 0.4 of a second, you start saying, well, maybe it was possible.
Yeah, I mean, we'll give you the benefit of it, but we're going to see that in race conditions with race tanks, race tyres and all the rest of it at the moment. Now, Aaron Slight qualified a whole second, even on the modified time, faster than Carl Fogarty, your race leader at the moment. That's Slight going through now, bike 6, and that is for Carl Fogarty, your race leader. Bit strung out for a World Superbike race, I have to say. Very unusual to see to see this amount of air between riders.
Certainly it wasn't like this here last year. Bit fluky for the World Superbikes, this, Keith.
Well,
but he won't be complaining, will he?
No, not at all. It's always the races you win are always the easiest ones in your life. I can always remember that.
Good memory.
Yeah, hell of a memory I've got. Thanks, Jules.
Couldn't resist it, Keith. Couldn't resist it.
But Fogarty, I mean, this is absolutely heaven sent. If he can keep this up, if he can take this race win, and Falapa is well down at the moment. Here we go. Let's have, it's the Stefan Mertens incident again. Well, just look. I mean, he tips it. He's a very smooth rider. Very, very unfortunate indeed. Just the front, just let go. A great shame indeed. Well, let's go back to the studio where Sean Emmett and Eric Richard have sat down. And Sean, give us a bit of a comment on what Stefan managed to do to himself there, if you can.
Well, actually, I was just turning to Eric to say that the front three had sort of maintained a status quo for a few laps, and just I turned to him, I saw Ducati go down, didn't know who it was, but then obviously saw it was Mertens, which was quite good for Foggy anyway.
Bit unlucky though, don't you think? I mean, he just tipped the front in.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't on the brakes, he was actually sort of midway into the corner, but it just shows you that 1 minute they look as though they're just going around a corner, and not really on the limit, but it just shows everyone how close to the limit they're actually going, because it's only a fraction too fast, and that's it, the bike's on the floor.
Good comment. Now, what I'd like to know about Dunlop versus Michelin, I mean, out in the Grand Prix this year, what's it been like there?
Well, Michelin have developed tyres now, which the Schwantz is using, and Rainey's on the Dunlops. And the problem with the Michelins used to be that they used to grip and grip, but then just suddenly let go. There was no warning. But this year they seem to have developed the tyre to actually slide more like a Dunlop, but still maintain that high side grip. So I think the Michelins are pretty good. I mean, they're... Oh,
that's Reimer, is it? Is it? No, 82.
No.
That's
32, I thought that was for a moment.
That's Fernando Cristobal of Spain on a Yamaha.
But I think the tyres are...
Back we go then, Carl Fogarty. Thanks, Sean. We'll be back with you in a bit about that. Let's pick up the pace here, because Fogarty is rising to the challenge. He is not letting Aaron Slight sneak up on him. Just look at this. Fogarty is in a race of his own at the moment. 15 laps to go. Long way still, Jules.
It is. I mean, the race might have lost some of its interest, but keep your fingers crossed for Foggy, because he needs the points in the title chase. Now, for Lapper and Scott Russell, really setting to it for third place now. These are the first and second men in the World Championship, so points matter here, Keith. These guys aren't going to settle for the status quo. Look at Scott Russell.
Yeah, Scott Russell will get better and better through this race. I mean, that's not a prediction, that's a fact, because the man always looks as if he gets lap on lap better and better and better. I'm always impressed with riders that are able to do that.
I'm always impressed with your predictions, Keith.
Well, actually, I better keep him... Oh, that was... I mean, he really tried to get the drive. You saw him sit up, really squirt the power on.
Squared it right off.
Yeah, try to get underneath for Lapper. Now, two different makes of tyres again here. Of course, the Duke, Michelin, the Kawasaki, Dunlop, two different makes of bike. Same thing at the front of the field with 4 and 6, Fogarty and Slight. So we've got a double battle.
We've got the Roche Ducatis fighting the Muzzy Kawasaki's for first and second, and for third and fourth.
Well, if it's a draw, let's have them standing against each other in the paddock for a duel.
Would you fight the Roche team?
Absolutely not a chance. I wouldn't even want to watch.
There was a wonderful... I don't know if I should tell this about Raymond Roche. Yes, I should tell this story about Raymond Roche, shouldn't I? On the way
He'll hit you, not me.
Yeah, on the way to Hockenheim, he was asleep in the passenger seat of the car, his Mercedes, I think, and they hit something. His mechanic was driving. He woke up to see blood and guts running all down the windscreen. They'd hit a deer out in the forests. And Raymond said, "At first I was very happy. I thought it was a policeman." Which is a dreadful thing. He should be ashamed of himself. But it gives you an idea of the mindset within that team, doesn't it?
Oh, no, that was a look out under the shoulder then. Under the armpit, I should say. But Fogarty being very economical with wind resistance. He didn't want to stick his head over his shoulder and have a look. He just had a look under his armpit to have a look and see what was going on behind him. Not that he really needed to do that, I'd have said, because his team are pretty good. And they certainly would have been telling him the position as Scott Russell again looks at the inside of Falapa. Well, this is the battle of the day, isn't it, at the moment?
And Scott Russell, Keith, looks to be all over Falapa here, but Giancarlo riding calmly, riding the line, and doesn't look like there's passing places for the Kawasaki.
Whatever anybody said about Falapa before Superbikes this year, every race I've seen him in, he has been extremely smooth and very good indeed. I mean, that Brands Hatch Irish round of the World Superbikes at the beginning of the year, incredible. I mean, the man could walk on water. It was as if
he did.
Someone had handed him a gift. It was unbelievable. So, at the front of the field, remember, is number 4, Carl Fogarty on the Ducati. Second place is Aaron Slight, number 6 on the Muzzy Kawasaki. Third is this man, 9, Giancarlo Falapa, the series leader. In front of second place man in the series, Scott Russell, number 11.
There's 9 points between these two men at the head of the championship chase, and they're battling for third and fourth places, which is 15 and
Don't look
13.
to me, Julian.
So there's it's serious, this, Keith. This matters.
Serious mathematics here. Okay, get your feet off the counter now. You don't need to use those toes anymore. But Abacete, really, it might be a bit of a strung-out battle, but it is good. So, Fogarty, he's gone through already. That was Slight going through. We're back with Fogarty, race leader. 13 laps to go. Now, Carl is a fit old boy, I think we can say. So, and he doesn't look like he's easing off the pace anywhere, and certainly he's broken the back of this particular race, and tyres look squirrely. Squirrely, I'll say.
That'll do. I saw Carl at Alton Park a couple of weeks ago for a very wet British Super Cup round, and I asked him if he'd enjoyed that wonderful first race in Germany. I got a burst of the ray gun eyes, you know, those piercing, watery blue eyes of Carl Foggarty's. He gave me a dose of those and said, "Of course not, I didn't win." It says it all, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it probably does.
It was a stupid question, of course. I should have known better.
Oh, you said that, Jules.
I admit it. Hands up.
Fogarty then. Well, we're going to have to think of a few things to say about this man, because at the moment I have not seen a mistake. It has absolutely been faultless. We've talked about, when you think about it, back to back, last week, only a week ago, Northwest 200, an Irish road race, 9-mile track, between the streets, houses, lamp posts, brick walls, 122.65 mile an hour lap record he set, 2 superbike race wins, first time he'd ever won anything out there. Now we're on a short circuit, completely different kettle of fish, almost a completely different style, although I'm sure it's not as far as Carl's concerned.
It would be a very different setup for the bike, though, wouldn't it?
I would say so, most definitely. Actually, it's a different bike altogether.
Of course.
We've got his race-winning bike in the studio here from last week. This is the official factory Ducati bike now that he's on out in the World Series. And really, it's like there in 6, and you can see, that is your first 4 that we can see there. Forget 82, he's already been in the fence. It was the man digging it out the bales a little bit earlier on. This is the battle for 3rd and 4th. Scott Russell looking up the inside, and I think that emphasises the point. That's Perovino now, 5 Bontempi 10. That's the battle
and Garriga.
And Garriga. Well, that's the battle for 5th, 6th and 7th. But what I was about to say there, Jules, on that braking manoeuvre, that's the second time we've seen the Mousy Kawasakis of Slight and Russell struggle on the brakes at the end of that straight to try and pass a Ducati, even though they've lined themselves up for that. Now, maybe that's going back to what Sean Emmett said a little earlier on in the studio, when he said that the 25 kilos that these things are giving away on braking, maybe the Ducatis have, because they are right on the edge, maybe that 25 kilos is just enough to keep the Duke in front on brakes.
Certainly that would have been Rob Phillis's view last year when he was the Works Kawasaki pilot. He didn't mind the Dukes having the weight advantage or the capacity advantage. He thought having both was double jeopardy for the Kawasaki's.
Well, of course, he wouldn't have been biased in any slightly shape or form, would he, Rob Phillips? Really?
Well, that's what his wife said, actually. She said, darling, I don't remember you saying that when you were leading the championship.
Loyalty indeed.
Wonderful, wonderful. But Foggy, let's just... OK, the race is strung out, but we noticed in 5th place, Perovino, well embroiled with number 10 Bontempi still is going to score points for the first time this year, and Garriga stalking the pair of them, so I'd expect Garriga should. Here's the... Oh, Scott Russell trying too hard again there, Keith?
Well, I don't think he's trying too hard, but he will be getting frustrated. He's been sitting there for a long time now, so a bit of frustration maybe is sneaking through. He's got 11 laps to sort it all out. So, 6 still is Slight. 2nd place, 82 is a back mark. Here it is, and Russell's having another look now. Russell's having another look up the inside, and again, he wasn't able to make that manoeuvre, and he got the Kawasaki absolutely moving on the brakes. Really very, very difficult indeed, and I think Russell is getting a little bit frustrated. He might even be faster than Falapa on the track overall, but he just doesn't seem to be able to get it underneath him.
He'll get his nose cut off if he does that to Giancarlo, of course.
Or punched.
Yes. And if you've seen Giancarlo, you would not want to fight him, I can assure you. He's a charming man, but he's such a fearsome-looking specimen.
Well, I think superbike racing is basically epitomises tough guys anyway, because they all look extremely, extremely like you wouldn't want to argue with them in any kind of an alley. But Falapa is doing a good job here of keeping Scott Russell out, and really his competition is about Scott Russell, so he's doing the job that he's got to do. He's probably not so much concentrating on the guys in front now. He'll be checking his pit board, but he will be real keen to keep Scott Russell behind him and deny him those extra couple of points. But Russell, well, Russell's giving him a bit of a riding lesson, really. I think Falapa's going to have big trouble when Russell gets by, but there again I would expect Falapa to make a move on the brakes at any time. Should Scott Russell manage to get through.
Let's not forget that Aaron Slight, 2nd in this race, Keith, is 3rd in the championship, so that's a fairly significant mark. He's got 47 points to the 37 of Perovino, so Aaron Slight 2nd place. Here's Foggy. Now, Keith, what is Foggy doing here? He's got to keep his concentration up, hasn't he? He knows he's got the race won if he stays on it. We're back with the 3rd place. They're in traffic, but good one, Falapa.
Absolutely good shot there, Giancarlo. And I was just about to say that about Fogarty. He managed to get the fall of the back markers just perfectly, and Aaron Slight had got a couple of corners that he's got to get past 2 back markers. So you can see once you get a series of corners, and that guy's not that slack, even though he's been off the bike already. Just held up Scott Russell for a very minute fraction of a second, but more significantly at the front of the field at the moment, Fogarty and Slight, there was 2 guys between them, and Foggy will be real happy to have slid past them on the start and finish straight.
And that'll have given Falapa some respite, won't it? Getting Mr. Cristobal suspended on the Yamaha between him and Scott Russell, number 11, for a while. And now let's see how long it takes Scott Russell to get back to the tail of the Ducati. That'll give us some idea of the relative merits of the two bikes on the track at the moment. If he stays those 3 or 4 bike lengths behind, we'll know they're fairly even. If he rushes up to Falapa quickly, we'll know we can expect something a bit spectacular on the last lap.
Yeah, I don't know whether we're going to be in for too much spectacle today because, or in this race in particular, it all seems to be very much a thinking man's race, really. They started off at a very, very hot pace indeed, extremely hot, which seems to be significant of Fogarty's style just lately. I mean, Fogarty has just made blistering starts.
Here he is, number 4, the race leader, Carl Fogarty on the Team Raymond Roche Ducati, the official factory team bike. And really, Keith, he's got to concentrate, hasn't he? That's the racecraft comes to it now, picking his spot to get the back markers. Whoops, this guy knows he's there. Who's that? Number 67, Jean-Louis Tranois, the Frenchman.
Yeah, but he slid past him quite neatly, and he'd already put one back marker between them already. Now, interestingly, I think I can see on Fogarty's bike, he's running steel discs on that bike. So Fogarty looks to me like he is running steel, certainly on the left-hand side. I wonder if he's running a combination of carbon fibre one side and steel disc the other. We'll have a look at this shot.
The Gardner cocktail, as it's known.
No, he's on steel disc. So Carl Fogarty, out of character for well, not out of character, but out of step with the rest of the racers, and slightly looks like to me he's settled for second place.
Doesn't he?
Because certainly he's not on the kind of pace he was on.
He was not keen to get past Mr. Mistrelli there, the privateer. Although the fastest lap of the race, again, has gone to Aaron Slight. And interestingly, Keith, Slight put in the fastest lap of that second race in Germany, would you believe, when he finished 4th. So we know Aaron can put the fast ones in. It must be stringing them together is his problem at the moment.
Fogarty is absolutely stringing perfect laps together. He's ridden a faultless race so far. I mean, it looked good right from the off.
He was embroiled with Bontempi and Mertens at the start, 2 guys who would give any superbike rider some trouble. But he's cleared off in quite splendid fashion. Not for the drama of the race, but for the satisfaction of British fans. Carl needs this. He's on the right bike to actually win a World Championship this year. And with all due respect to his TTF1 World Championships, Keith, shall we say a World Championship that actually means something?
Yeah, I think you can definitely say that. I'd certainly say that. So, Slight now through the back markers. Let's have a look and see if Slighty has got some wind left in him for this, because I would have said Fogarty's efforts have demoralised everybody behind him, because really he's just put a lap on lap very, very good, and Slight, well, he's got a long way to do it. Fogarty has got to make a little bit of a mistake to get Slighty back on a par with him, or even a little bit closer, so Slighty has some hope.
Yep.
I don't think at the moment he's got any real hope in his head of being able to catch Fogarty, should Fogarty continue the way he is at the minute.
Well, you said a couple of laps ago that it looked like this man, number 6, Aaron Slight, had settled for second place, and I have to agree with you. The body language and the attitudes told you that he was protecting second place rather than having ambitions on the win. Hello, somebody's in the dirt there, number 54, is that Keith? That looks it is. It's Trip Nobles on the Rumi Honda.
I was going to say, look like the old RC of Trip Nobles. Oh,
there he is.
Well, if you're going to fall off, that's not such bad luck after all, is it really? If you're going to fall off, those are the type of marshals you really want at a race leader.
G'day, my name's Trip from Macon, Georgia.
Well, he's putting on a bit of a stagger, but he wouldn't be walking at all if he'd got a problem with his legs. So Trip Nobles then, a bit winded perhaps. And,
well, he would be trying to pedal that old RC30 around, Keith. You said Hervé Moineau Suzuki should be in a museum. That RC30 is really, really uncompetitive. And this man, whose only form is Supersport 600 and Harley racing in the States, has respectable. I mean, he had 2 finishes in Germany, 19th and 21st. More than respectable on an RC30. Yeah,
when he gets his breath back, he'll get a phone number, I'm sure. Back with race leader then, Carl Fogarty.
And you've got
he's playing now. That was you can just see how he's laying the power down on the Duke. Just 6 laps left to go, and really he does look absolutely outstandingly good. Yeah, I mean, I think that's...
Oh, good night, nurse.
Aaron Slight, perhaps if he'd got a better start, perhaps if he'd got through the back markers a little bit, but it's all about perhaps he's laying rubber as well.
Still trying.
Yeah, well, that might be just a case of things going off a bit. I mean, we won't know until after we talk to these guys between these races just quite how things stood up.
Guess who the next man to be lapped is, Keith? Vittorio Scatola. Older than you.
Thanks very much.
I mean, you used to beat him, didn't you?
To be honest, I can't even remember him. Mind you, you never remember the ones you beat.
Yes.
You only remember the ones in front of you, that has to be said. With a memory like I've got, you're in double trouble.
But here he is, number 4, Carl Fogarty on the Raymond Roche Ducati. And this will please Raymond Hello, oh, this Trip Noble's getting the comfy ride to the ambulance.
He's obviously had a big rollover in the dirt. He's probably a little bit winded. He certainly didn't look as if there was any major damage as far as limbs are concerned. Well, that's Scatoli done with by Fogarty. Fogarty on his merry way, and really...
He's faultless, isn't he? This is like Falapa.
I was going to say, I was just waiting to see how he squirted it onto the straight there to see if it was actually moving along. It looked very, very good indeed. He's now sort of laying the power down, probably a little more gently than he was earlier. It looked to me like he wasn't in such a hurry to get onto the straight. Let's have a look and see what Slighty's like.
I think the man behind this man, I think third place is now Scott Russell, Keith. I got a glimpse of a Kawasaki in third place. Oops, there's some of those. That's not Foggy.
That's Falapa, isn't it?
It's Falapa.
Yeah, Falapa down. Well, that's it's good news for the championship, but extremely bad news as far as Falapa is concerned. Now let's see. Russell as well. They took each other out. Brilliant. Oh, dear me. Oh. Well, that's livened it up. So then, the man you were talking about a little earlier, who was in third place, well, hasn't he got... So Fogarty now is going to grab a whole handful of points and going to be right back in contention with this series.
Well, the betting there is that Falapa tried to get back on him under brakes and punted the pair of them off, isn't it?
We can only hope that we have that on camera and it will come back to us in a few moments. Well, you'll be the first to see it if it does, and I wait with bated breath on that. Well, Fogarty, well...
Not a happy bunny.
No, not happy at all. Now, judging by the way that Scott Russell looked, he looked uncharacteristically peeved about that, so I would suggest from the body language then in the dirt that Scott Russell was taken out by Falapa. I could, of course, be completely wide of the mark. Yeah, oops. I would say most definitely Falapa made a move on him. And
well, I did catch a glimpse of Scott Russell in third place, Keith, for sure, in front of Falapa. The next thing we saw was the fun and games in the sandpit. So, Foggy, please.
Well, 5 laps to go. And drama has happened, but down in third and fourth places there. At the front is still this man, Carl Fogarty, bike number 4. The Ducati running as sweet as a nut. And I tentatively used the word domination early on in the race, and certainly he's proved me absolutely right as far as that's concerned, and I'm more than pleased that he's managed it.
Well, this is what Foggy needs in the championship, Keith. Down in 8th in the championship at the start of this race. Don't forget he fell in the first race at Brands Hatch, was unable to start the second race. Then in Germany he had a fighting third and a disappointing 7th. To give him how many points? 24 in the championship. Now Scott Russell has 64, Falapa 75, so he'll move to within 20 points. One race is worth of Scott Russell. And as you were saying, Keith, Superbike is a long old season. You can have a DNF, you can have a crash and still be in contention, not like in Grand Prix racing.
Now, of course, Grand Prix racing, after you've done all this effort, Carl Fogarty could sit back with a champagne, put his feet up in the motorhome and kiss the wife. But today, after he's had lunch, he's got another one of these to go on with. And really, that makes the old butterflies go just a little bit when you sat there waiting for another race in the day that you know is important. You're not absolutely sure how you can perform on it. But really, Fogarty looks to be like the favourite man today for sure.
Interesting stuff. Well, I'm going to get my boxing gloves and crash helmet ready for when I talk to the paddock after this race, Keith. Because I think Scott Russell and Falapa will probably have slightly different stories about what went on.
Aaron Slight then, a little bit closer. Here comes Aaron Slight. Julian, career details of Aaron Slight.
Well, the one win this man had was exactly a year ago at this track in the first leg. He's looked good round here again, pole position. The man has form, Keith, Aussie Superbike champion. That is not to be sneezed at, given the competition he has had out there. 2 Castrol 6-hour wins early in his career. That was the absolute bog box stock production races, where they even checked the part number on the oil filter to make sure you weren't running anything illegal. Very prestigious race in its time, the most important production race in the world. But Aaron, when he first got to Superbike, despite that first win put pressure on him, and he's, I think, struggled to live up to the pressure. He also had the unsatisfactory task of trying to develop Kawasaki's aborted 250 Grand Prix racer, so he's been a busy little New Zealander for quite a while.
And while you were getting on with that, we saw the battle for third place, which is a pity we're not seeing a bit more of it, with Perovino up in front with a Matriane in there as well. And that was real hot.
Yes, Danny Matriane, who's not done a lot at all this year, despite being 8th in the World Championship last year. He's had 2 DNFs and 2 15th places, which is hardly startling. Danny finished third here last year. There he is in fourth place behind Pirovano, and Bontempi hanging on for fifth place. Well, that's good for the young Italian as well.
Well, Bontempi had actually got between Pirovano and Amatriani in our shot a little bit earlier on. That was a slightly older graphic, but battle going on there as Fogarty completes another lap. And
well, that's Valerio Di Stefanis. He's just lapped Bird Yamaha's young protege, who's done very well so far. I'm surprised to see him that far down. He had back row starts.
Here it is.
Oh, here we are, Keith. Oh, serious stuff. This is the one.
At last, we've got World Superbike racing back on the screen. This is what it's usually about. And for third place, Pirovano from Bontempi, from Amatriani, from Garriga, and Terry Reimer on the back. So, the Brit Terry Reimer on bike 32. 16 is Garriga, 8 is Amatriani, 10 is Bontempi, and Pirovano, the frightening Italian, on the Bird Yamaha in that third place at the moment. Remember, this little battle is the one for third place. A major league points there for that boy.
And a rostrum.
Back with Fogarty.
Yeah, there's two Spaniards in that group who want to get on the rostrum at the home event, of course. Back with the leader. Pirovano, just mentioning Keith, frightening, is the least demonstrative Italian I've ever met. Lets all his mechanics and team do the hand waving for him. Cold, glassy stare he has, and he's demon on a motorbike. As is this man, number 4, Carl Fogarty. And it's a demonstration ride. Now, hello, here we are for third place.
Oh!
Keith just had a mild coroner against Amatriani. Looked like he was going to do something dodgy.
Well, it was Bontempi sideways on the brakes that had my attention at that particular time, and the old back wheel was slightly out of line, I have to say, but it's Pirovano, Bontempi, Amatriani, Garriga, and then Terry Reimer.
Good quality.
Good quality all round, there's no doubt in that. So, this is the battle for third place, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. And who's it going to be? I mean, we've only got 2 and a bit laps to go.
Bontempi was a bit slow in there, and Amatriani got the power on at a twitch. Here comes Garriga looking at Amatriani. These two blokes don't like each other very much. Certainly Amatriani, having been the top Spaniard in Superbike racing for a couple of years, was more than wound up by the arrival of one Garriga.
One Garriga, quality 500 Grand Prix rider. Must be wondering what it's all about here in Superbike. Had a couple of reasonable rides at Hockenheim, but looked out of his depth in Brands Hatch's... Out of his depth, being the appropriate word, of course. It was that wet. Pirovano, though, a real fighter in Superbike, made a career out of Superbike. Bontempi looking at the inside line on the brakes. Is it going to be, or isn't it? Well, it's going to be a swap of paintwork in a minute, I think.
Very, very rarely do you outbrake Fabrizio Pirovano. As you said, Keith, he weighs about 5 stone wringing wet. And he is a demon on the brakes, an absolute demon.
Well, he'll be weighing 5 stone today, because he'll certainly be wringing wet today. It's quite warm, and the pace is hot for third.
2 Italians, 2 Spaniards, and a Brit fighting for third place.
So, what can Terry Reimer do off the back of this bunch? Terry Reimer back to form at last, but it has to be said, his right hand is still not 100% fit. Remember, he broke bones in his right hand earlier on at Le Mans, earlier on in the year, and it's taken quite a long time for that to come back to fitness. And he told me he was out at the Northwest 200, the Irish races that we were talking about, that Fogarty won last week, and he said he was about 70% fit in his right hand then. Well, this race is a lot harder than the Northwest 200 physically.
Yes, he had a good race to 8th in the first Hockenheim race, but hello, what's that? Amatriani is getting enthusiastic, isn't he, in the middle of that group?
Tell me when he's not.
Dear me, there's some hotheads in there. I draw your attention to number 10, Bontempi, number 8, Amatriani, Keith, who are definitely... last lap for Carl Fogarty. Well, stay on it, Carl. Stay on it.
Yellow flag waving. Now, who's that? Slightly's behind him now. Let's hope there's no oil down if there's a yellow flag out. It's obviously quite big, and judging by the amount of wave flags we've got there, but well, of course, wave yellow flags all the way around the course to satisfy Carl Fogarty.
Very much so.
It means Aaron Slight will never be able to pass, and if he does, he'll be able to put in a protest and get him slung out anyway. So.
Not allowed to pass under yellow flags. They were warning to riders there is an incident on the corner ahead of them, and it forbids you, and somebody has dumped the Suzuki. That must be Herbane 1.0, trying to pedal that museum piece round. Look at the back wheel.
Pull the clutch in, chaps, and it might be a lot easier. Not only are they in sand, it's also in gear with the rear wheel jammed on. Meanwhile, last lap, remember, Carl Fogarty, number 4 on the Ducati. Well, a great ride throughout this race. A couple of early laps, a little bit difficult, had to wait his time, bide his moment, got into the front, and really in a class of his own today. So
I'm looking forward to the second leg, Keith. Mertens will be upright again, and they will not want to let him go like they have this time, that's for sure. As Carl Fogarty gets enthusiastic, and it will be, let's assume it, let's make an assumption, I'm touching any wood I can find in this commentary box, which is the second career World Superbike race win for Carl Fogarty, coming up in just a few corners time. Let's hope it's not the celebrate, Carl, why not? Just stay on it.
Stay on it, whatever you're on, stay on it, because it has been outstanding. So Cole Fogarty then, bike number 4, wheelies across the line for the first race leg win at Albacete here in Spain. Aaron Slight outdoes him with a foot off and a bigger wheelie, and that is your first 2. We wait back down the grid to see what's happening for the back. Here it is. Bontempi's in front of it. So Bontempi, it looks like, has grabbed 3rd place at the moment, and that'll go down all right.
That'll be his first rostrum finish in World Superbike. He's pushed Pirovano out the way. Now there's a thing. Pirovano comes in 4th, Amatria in 5th, Garriga 6th. Terry sits up, and he's a man who's settled for that 7th place, I think. Now that is a great ride from Pier Giorgio Bontempi. He was 4th on the grid, 3rd in the race. Stoppy from Foggy.
Yeah, not a good idea.
No,
if you
definitely
go back
not.
To, the Kevin McGee Laguna Seca crash, and not a good thing at all. So then, Cole Fogarty takes the win from Aaron Slight. There's confirmation of it. On Tempe in 3rd, Pirovano gets 4th, and Danny Imatriane, a good ride from him, in 5th place, just 23 seconds behind.
Well, that was... Yep, celebrations from Aaron Slight, who looks like he's actually quite pleased with that 2nd place, and who can blame him? Foggy, though, is pulling the best wheelies. 3.6 seconds in the end. Well, Foggy made it look even easier than that, and the crowd have enjoyed it. Well, I'm looking forward, Keith, to the 2nd race this afternoon, because I don't think they're going to let Cole Fogarty get away with it that easily.
No, of course they're going to be changing their motorcycles between the legs, and the 2nd race is going to be absolutely served. We'll be back within a while. We'll be back with Sean Emmett and Eric Richard in the studio.